Ladies and gentlemen, in life, we all strive to grow wiser, to become better versions of ourselves, and to avoid the pitfalls of ignorance. True strength comes from self-awareness, discipline, and the ability to learn from mistakes. Today, we will discuss 7 signs of a foolish woman, not to condemn, but to reflect, learn, and improve. 1. She seeks validation from others. A foolish woman bases her worth on the approval of others. She chases compliments, attention, and external validation instead of building inner confidence. A wise woman, on the other hand, understands that her value does not depend on fleeting opinions, but on her own principles and actions. 2. She cannot control her emotions. When anger, jealousy, or insecurity dictate her actions, she becomes a slave to emotions. Wisdom lies in mastering one's feelings, choosing reason over impulse, and responding rather than reacting. A strong woman remains calm in the face of adversity. 3. She talks more than she listens. A foolish woman speaks without thought, seeking to impress rather than understand. A wise woman listens more than she speaks, knowing that silence and observation bring knowledge, while careless words lead to regret. 4. She avoids responsibility. Blaming others for failures and refusing to take accountability is a mark of ignorance. A woman of strength owns her mistakes, learns from them, and moves forward with dignity. 5. She prioritizes pleasure over discipline. A foolish woman chases instant gratification, excessive indulgence in material things, fleeting pleasures, or distractions rather than long-term success and self-improvement. The wise woman understands that discipline leads to true fulfillment. 6. She fears solitude. A woman who cannot be alone, who constantly seeks distraction or companionship to avoid facing herself, lacks depth. True wisdom comes in embracing solitude, for in silence we grow, reflect, and find our true strength. 7. She resents those who succeed instead of being inspired by others' achievements. The foolish woman envies them. Instead of learning, she criticizes. But a wise woman sees others' success as motivation, knowing that another's light does not diminish her own. True self-worth is an internal foundation that remains unshaken by external circumstances. Many people, however, seek validation from others to feel valued, relying on compliments, social media likes, or approval from friends, family, or society at large. This pursuit of external validation often leads to a fragile sense of self, easily shattered by criticism, rejection, or lack of recognition. The key to genuine confidence and self-assurance lies in cultivating self-worth from within, independent of the opinions of others. A person who depends on external validation becomes a prisoner of perception. When compliments come, they feel uplifted, but when criticism arises, their self-esteem crumbles. This constant fluctuation creates instability, making them vulnerable to manipulation and emotional distress. Their identity becomes shaped by what others think rather than by their own principles, values, and accomplishments. In contrast, a person who has internalized their self-worth remains steady in both praise and criticism, because they understand what neither defines them. They are guided by an inner compass rather than public opinion. The process of building self-worth from within begins with self-awareness. This requires taking a step back from external noise and reflecting on one's values, strengths, and aspirations. It means understanding one's flaws and accepting them, while also striving for improvement. A person who knows themselves deeply will not be swayed by temporary opinions or societal expectations. They will stand firm in their beliefs, even when faced with opposition, because their self-worth does not hinge on external approval. One of the greatest obstacles to internal self-worth is comparison. In the age of social media, it is easy to measure oneself against curated images of success, beauty, and happiness. However, comparison is a thief of joy and a destroyer of confidence. When people compare their behind-the-scenes struggles to someone else's highlight reel, they feel inadequate. This leads to a cycle of seeking external validation to compensate for perceived shortcomings. To break free from this, one must shift focus inward, measuring progress against their own past self rather than against others. Self-worth is not about being better than someone else, it is about being better than yesterday. Another essential aspect of developing self-worth is self-acceptance. Many people believe they will be worthy only when they achieve certain goals, when they lose weight, get a promotion, or find the perfect relationship. This conditional self-worth is dangerous because it ties one's value to external achievements. While striving for growth is commendable, self-worth should not be postponed until some external milestone is reached. A person must learn to appreciate themselves in the present while working toward the future. Self-worth should not be dependent on success, beauty, or status, but on the inherent value of being a unique and evolving individual. Mindset plays a crucial role in whether one seeks validation externally or finds it within. A fixed mindset, where a person believes their abilities and worth are static, often leads to external validation seeking. They feel the need to prove themselves constantly because they believe their worth is tied to achievements. In contrast, a growth mindset allows a person to see self-worth as a continuous journey. They understand that failure does not diminish their value but is merely a stepping stone toward improvement. A person with a growth mindset can accept criticism without internalizing it as a personal attack because they view it as an opportunity to grow rather than as a judgment of their worth. Setting personal standards rather than following societal expectations is another key to internal self-worth. Society often imposes definitions of success, beauty, and intelligence, but these standards are arbitrary and ever-changing. A person who chases them will never find lasting fulfillment. Instead, defining one's own success and setting personal standards for behavior, ethics, and goals creates a sense of self-worth that is not dependent on outside approval. When a person lives according to their own principles, they experience a deeper sense of integrity and confidence that no amount of external validation can replace. Self-care and self-respect are also fundamental in reinforcing internal self-worth. Taking care of one's mental, physical, and emotional well-being sends a message to oneself that they are valuable. This includes setting boundaries, saying no to things that do not align with one's values, and prioritizing personal growth. A person who respects themselves will not tolerate toxic relationships or situations that diminish their worth. They will walk away from anything that does not serve their well-being, not because they seek external validation, but because they recognize their own value. It is also important to detach from the fear of judgment. Many people hold themselves back from pursuing dreams or expressing themselves because they fear criticism. However, the truth is that no matter what one does, there will always be opinions, some positive, some negative. Living in fear of judgment means surrendering control over one's life to others. True self-worth means understanding that external opinions are just that, opinions. They do not define reality. What matters most is one's own perception of themselves. Gratitude and self-appreciation further reinforce internal self-worth. Instead of focusing on what is lacking or what others have, recognizing one's own achievements, strengths, and unique qualities fosters confidence. Celebrating small wins and appreciating personal progress creates a mindset of abundance rather than deficiency. When a person acknowledges their worth daily, they become less dependent on external affirmation. Lastly, embracing solitude helps in discovering true self-worth. Many people seek distractions, constant social interactions, social media, or entertainment to avoid being alone with their thoughts. However, solitude provides clarity. It allows a person to listen to their inner voice, separate their desires from societal expectations, and understand what truly matters to them. A person who is comfortable in their own company does not need external validation because they have built a solid relationship with themselves. Seeking self-worth within is a journey, not a destination. It requires daily effort, self-reflection, and a commitment to growth. However, once a person cultivates an unshakable sense of worth from within, they become resilient, confident, and truly free. No longer dependent on the fleeting approval of others, they walk their path with certainty, knowing that their value comes not from external praise, but from the strength of their character. Emotions are an intrinsic part of human nature. They influence our thoughts, actions, and decisions, shaping the way we interact with the world. While emotions can be powerful tools for understanding ourselves and others, they can also become dangerous when they take control. The ability to master emotions rather than be controlled by them is a defining trait of a wise and resilient person. It is not about suppressing feelings, but about understanding, managing, and channeling them in a way that serves rather than hinders personal growth. A person who is controlled by their emotions reacts impulsively, often making decisions they later regret. Anger leads them to lash out, fear holds them back from opportunities, and sadness keeps them stuck in a cycle of despair. When emotions dictate behavior, logic and reason take a back seat, making it difficult to act in a balanced and rational way. This lack of control can damage relationships, careers, and overall well-being. In contrast, mastering emotions means having the ability to experience them fully without allowing them to dictate actions. It means observing emotions as they arise, understanding their origins, and deciding how to respond rather than reacting on impulse. The first step to mastering emotions is self-awareness. Many people go through life reacting emotionally without ever questioning why they feel the way they do. They assume that emotions simply happen to them, unaware that feelings often stem from deeply ingrained beliefs, past experiences, or unexamined fears. Self-awareness requires taking a step back and examining emotional triggers. When anger arises, is it because of the present situation, or is it rooted in past wounds? When fear emerges, is it justified, or is it a response to imagined threats? Understanding the source of emotions allows a person to address them at their root, rather than being overwhelmed by them. Once self-awareness is developed, the next step is learning to pause before reacting. Many emotional outbursts happen in a split second, without thought or reflection. A single moment of pause can make the difference between reacting impulsively and responding with wisdom. Taking a deep breath, counting to 10, or simply stepping away from a situation can create space for reason to enter. This moment of stillness allows a person to assess whether their initial emotional response is appropriate, or if a more measured approach would lead to a better outcome. With practice, this pause becomes a habit, allowing emotions to be acknowledged without being given full control. Another important aspect of emotional mastery is understanding that emotions are temporary. When a person is overwhelmed by anger, sadness, or fear, it often feels as if the emotion will last forever. However, emotions are like waves. They rise, peak, and eventually subside. By recognizing that no emotion is permanent, a person can learn to sit with uncomfortable feelings without letting them take over. Instead of acting on temporary emotions, they can remind themselves that feelings pass and decisions should be made from a place of clarity rather than emotional turbulence. Developing emotional resilience also requires shifting perspective. Many times, negative emotions arise because of how situations are perceived. Two people can experience the same event but react in completely different ways based on their mindset. A person who views failure as a personal shortcoming will feel discouraged and defeated, while someone who sees failure as a learning experience will feel motivated to improve. By changing the way situations are interpreted, emotions can be shaped in a way that leads to growth rather than distress. Instead of seeing obstacles as unfair burdens, they can be viewed as opportunities for strengthening character and resilience. Emotional mastery is also closely tied to self-discipline. Just as physical strength is built through consistent training, emotional strength is developed through repeated practice. When a person allows emotions to control them, they reinforce a habit of reacting impulsively. But when they repeatedly choose to respond thoughtfully, they strengthen the habit of emotional control. Over time, this discipline turns into a natural way of being. The person who once reacted with anger learns patience, the one who once cowered in fear learns courage, and the one who once gave in to sadness learns perseverance. Mindfulness is another powerful tool for mastering emotions. Instead of being lost in emotions, mindfulness teaches a person to observe them with detachment. This does not mean ignoring feelings, but rather acknowledging them without judgment. A mindful person can experience anger without becoming consumed by it, feel sadness without drowning in it, and acknowledge fear without letting it dictate their actions. By observing emotions as they come and go, they lose their grip, allowing space for rational thought and intentional action. Additionally, mastering emotions requires letting go of the need for external control. Many emotional struggles arise from trying to control things outside of one's influence, other people's opinions, unpredictable circumstances, or past events. A person who ties their emotional state to external factors will always be at the mercy of the world around them. However, a person who focuses on what they can control, their thoughts, reactions, and choices, gains emotional stability. Instead of being disturbed by what they cannot change, they focus on their response to it, which is always within their power. Another crucial part of emotional mastery is the ability to channel emotions into productive action. Emotions carry energy, and rather than letting them lead to destructive behavior, they can be redirected into something meaningful. Anger can be transformed into determination, fear into preparation, and sadness into deeper self-reflection. The most successful people are not those who never feel negative emotions, but those who use them as fuel for growth. Instead of being crippled by fear, they let it push them to prepare better. Instead of being consumed by anger, they use it to fight for justice or create change. Relationships also benefit greatly from emotional mastery. Many conflicts arise not because of real issues, but because of uncontrolled emotions. Misunderstandings escalate, hurtful words are spoken, and bridges are burned due to unchecked feelings. However, when a person masters their emotions, they communicate with clarity and patience. They do not let temporary frustration ruin meaningful relationships, nor do they allow insecurity to create unnecessary doubts. Emotional intelligence strengthens bonds, builds trust, and allows for deeper, more meaningful connections. Mastering emotions is not about becoming emotionless, but about learning to work with emotions rather than against them. It is about using emotions as tools rather than being used by them. By practicing self-awareness, discipline, mindfulness, and perspective shifts, a person can transform emotions from a source of chaos into a source of strength. Over time, this mastery leads to a life of greater peace, clarity, and resilience, allowing one to navigate the world with confidence and wisdom. Listening is an art that many overlook in a world that encourages constant expression. People often believe that speaking more makes them wiser, more influential, or more respected. However, true wisdom does not come from the ability to talk, but from the ability to listen, observe, and understand. Silence is not a sign of weakness or passivity. It is a powerful tool that allows for deeper learning, better relationships, and more thoughtful responses. A person who listens more and talks less gains knowledge, makes fewer mistakes, and develops a level of self-discipline that sets them apart from those who speak impulsively. When a person listens, they absorb information, analyze different perspectives, and understand situations more clearly. Those who talk excessively often do so to impress others or to assert their opinions without truly considering what is being said. This not only limits their ability to learn, but also makes them blind to insights that could change their understanding of the world. When someone is constantly speaking, they are not giving themselves the opportunity to hear ideas that might challenge their beliefs or provide them with valuable lessons. True wisdom comes from the willingness to be open to new knowledge rather than the need to dominate conversations. In silence, a person develops patience and control over their thoughts. Many people speak out of habit, filling the air with words just to avoid uncomfortable pauses. However, those who embrace silence learn the value of measured responses. They do not rush to speak simply to prove a point or to satisfy their ego. Instead, they take time to process what they have heard, ensuring that the words have meaning and purpose. This deliberate approach to conversation prevents unnecessary conflicts and misunderstandings, allowing for communication that is thoughtful rather than reactionary. Listening also strengthens relationships. Many conflicts arise because people want to be heard more than they want to understand. When two individuals argue, both often focus on making their own points rather than truly listening to each other. This leads to frustration and a lack of resolution. However, when a person listens with genuine interest and without the need to immediately respond, they create space for understanding and connection. People feel valued when they are truly heard, and this deepens trust and mutual respect. A person who listens well is often sought after for advice, not because they speak the most, but because they understand the most. Silence also teaches humility. Those who speak excessively often do so out of a need to prove their intelligence or authority. However, a truly wise person understands that they do not need to constantly assert their knowledge. They recognize that there is always more to learn and that every person, regardless of status or background, has something valuable to teach. By listening more than they speak, they remain open to growth, always expanding their understanding rather than assuming they already know everything. This humility not only makes them wiser, but also earns them greater respect from others. Another advantage of listening more and speaking less is the ability to control emotions. Many people react impulsively in conversations, saying things in moments of anger, frustration, or excitement that they later regret. However, those who listen more develop the habit of thinking before speaking. They do not allow emotions to dictate their words, but instead take a moment to consider their response carefully. This ability to remain composed in discussions, especially in heated situations, demonstrates emotional intelligence and self-discipline. It prevents unnecessary arguments and allows for conversations that are productive rather than destructive. Silence also enhances observation skills. When a person talks too much, they focus primarily on their own thoughts and opinions, often missing important details in their surroundings. However, when they listen and remain silent, they become more aware of body language, tone of voice, and subtle cues that others reveal. This heightened awareness allows them to understand what is not being said, giving them deeper insight into people's true thoughts and feelings. They can read situations more accurately and respond in a way that is more in tune with reality rather than assumptions. In addition to improving interpersonal relationships, the practice of listening more and speaking less also benefits personal growth. Many of life's greatest lessons come from observing and absorbing information rather than constantly expressing opinions. Books, conversations, experiences, and even nature all offer wisdom, but only to those who are willing to be still and listen. The greatest thinkers and leaders throughout history have often been those who understood the value of silence. They did not speak to simply fill space, but chose their words carefully, ensuring that what they said had impact and significance. Another important aspect of listening more is the ability to recognize when words are unnecessary. Many people feel the need to constantly explain themselves, defend their actions, or prove their worth. However, true confidence does not come from speaking endlessly, but from knowing that silence itself can be powerful. Not every situation requires a response, and not every opinion needs to be voiced. Sometimes the wisest course of action is to simply observe, reflect, and allow events to unfold without interference. This restraint is a sign of strength, not weakness. Furthermore, listening teaches a person to embrace different perspectives. When someone speaks too much, they often become trapped in their own point of view, unwilling to consider alternative ideas. However, by listening more, they expose themselves to new ways of thinking, broadening their understanding of the world. This makes them more adaptable, open-minded, and capable of making better decisions. They learn that wisdom is not about having all the answers, but about being willing to seek them from different sources. The ability to listen more and talk less is not about remaining silent at all times, but about knowing when to speak and when to be still. It is about recognizing that words have power and should not be wasted on meaningless chatter. It is about understanding that true wisdom does not come from the need to be heard, but from the ability to hear others. In a world where everyone is trying to speak louder to be noticed, those who master the art of listening stand out, not because they demand attention, but because their silence speaks volumes. Taking responsibility is one of the most defining traits of a strong and wise individual. Many people go through life blaming others for their misfortunes, failures, and struggles, believing that external circumstances or other people are the reason for their shortcomings. While it is true that life presents challenges beyond one's control, the way a person responds to these challenges determines their growth, resilience, and ultimate success. Shifting from a mindset of blame to one of responsibility transforms a person's life, allowing them to take charge of their actions, decisions, and future. Blaming others is often an easy escape from accountability. It allows a person to justify their failures without having to confront their own mistakes. However, this mindset keeps them stuck in the same cycle, preventing them from learning and improving. When someone constantly shifts the blame onto external factors, they give away their power. They allow circumstances to control them instead of taking control of their own destiny. A person who blames others for their lack of success will never find true growth, because they fail to recognize the role they play in their own life. Instead of looking inward and identifying what needs to change, they focus on what others have done wrong, which leads to stagnation. On the other hand, taking responsibility is an act of empowerment. When a person accepts that their choices and actions shape their life, they gain the ability to change their circumstances. They recognize that while they cannot always control what happens to them, they can always control how they respond. This shift in perspective leads to growth because it encourages self-reflection, learning, and improvement. A responsible person does not dwell on past mistakes with regret, but instead analyzes them to understand what went wrong and how to avoid repeating them in the future. One of the biggest challenges in taking responsibility is facing the discomfort of admitting one's faults. Many people resist acknowledging their mistakes because it is difficult to accept that they were wrong. Pride, ego, and fear of judgment often stand in the way of personal accountability. However, true strength lies in the ability to be honest with oneself. When a person can admit their mistakes without making excuses, they open the door to personal growth. Taking responsibility does not mean dwelling on guilt or self-pity. It means using past experiences as lessons to become better. Personal relationships also improve when a person takes responsibility instead of blaming others. Many conflicts arise because people refuse to admit their faults, instead pointing fingers at others. This leads to resentment, broken trust, and repeated misunderstandings. However, when someone takes ownership of their actions, they foster mutual respect and create an environment of honesty and growth. Instead of making excuses for hurtful words or careless actions, a responsible person acknowledges their role in a conflict, apologizes sincerely, and works toward a solution. This maturity strengthens relationships and allows for deeper connections based on trust and accountability. The workplace is another area where taking responsibility leads to success. In any professional setting, challenges, mistakes, and setbacks are inevitable. Employees who blame others for failures often damage their reputations and limit their growth. When someone refuses to take responsibility, they create an atmosphere of negativity, making it difficult for teamwork and collaboration to thrive. On the other hand, those who take responsibility for their work, admit their mistakes, and actively seek solutions are seen as reliable and capable. They earn the trust of colleagues and superiors because they demonstrate integrity and commitment. A responsible person does not wait for someone else to fix a problem. They take the initiative to find solutions and make improvements. Taking responsibility also plays a crucial role in overcoming adversity. Life is unpredictable, and hardships are inevitable. People who blame external forces for their struggles often remain stuck, waiting for circumstances to change instead of adapting and pushing forward. However, those who take responsibility for their reactions to adversity develop resilience. They understand that while they cannot always control what happens to them, they can control their mindset and actions. They do not waste time complaining about unfairness, but instead focus on what they can do to improve their situation. This mindset shift allows them to navigate challenges with strength and determination, ultimately leading to greater success and fulfillment. Another important aspect of taking responsibility is recognizing the power of choice. Every decision a person makes shapes their life, and even in difficult situations, there is always a choice in how to respond. A person who blames others often sees themselves as a victim, believing they have no control over their circumstances. However, a responsible person understands that they have the ability to make choices that lead to better outcomes. They take ownership of their decisions, both good and bad, and learn from every experience. This level of awareness allows them to make more intentional choices that align with their goals and values. Self-discipline and responsibility go hand in hand. A person who takes responsibility does not make excuses for procrastination, lack of effort, or poor habits. Instead, they hold themselves accountable for their actions and commit to self-improvement. They do not wait for motivation to strike. They create their own discipline through consistent effort. When faced with setbacks, they do not blame circumstances. They analyze what they can do differently to achieve better results. This mindset of ownership leads to long-term success because it fosters persistence, adaptability, and a commitment to excellence. Taking responsibility also brings inner peace. A person who constantly blames others carries a heavy burden of frustration and dissatisfaction. They feel powerless, believing that their happiness and success depend on external forces. However, when a person embraces responsibility, they experience a sense of control over their life. They no longer waste energy on blaming others, but instead focus on solutions and personal growth. This shift leads to a more positive and fulfilled life, free from the stress and bitterness that come with a victim mentality.